Come on, R2. You're in a TARDIS with unlimited range. How can't you hear me? Oh, hey everyone, and welcome to Groove Builders, the show where we create together. I'm your host, Disorderly Cone. Seems like we've been walking in this forest forever, I know. But Hagrid had quite a bit to say last time we met him. Apparently, a dragon has stolen the famous golden snitch from Hogwarts, and it's up to us to get it back as quietly as possible. Now, unfortunately, Hagrid really didn't know much about this dragon, and to be honest, I really don't know much about them either. So I thought we would go to the Weasley's family home and speak to the boys there to find out a little bit more about this dragon before jumping into its den. You know, it wasn't too long ago that I actually built the Weasley's family home from Metal Earth. Why don't you guys check that out while I get back to walking?
Groove Builders, welcome to the workbench. We have the Weasley's family home from the Metal Earth Harry Potter collection, also known as the Burrow. And this build looks really interesting because of its unique architecture. Look at that. Groovers, let's take a look at the back. On the back, we get a brief look at our model, and on the left here, we have some instructions on how to build it. Then, in the center here, we have a QR code which we can scan to get a 360 view of our model if we need it while we're building. And on the right, we get a glimpse at some other models in the series. Finally, at the bottom, we have a difficulty rating here of about a medium, which means this might be a little challenging. Groovers, let's go ahead and open up our package. We have our instructions, and we have our 2 sheets of metal. Looks really interesting. Groovers, let's get our first couple of pieces. And just like that, we have all of our parts needed for the first 2 pages. Now, let's grab part number 1 here and begin bending down our sides, making sure that we have all of our engraving detail facing up. Nice little frame here, all nice and bent up. Now we can move on to part number 2, which is this one right here. And the first thing we're going to do is take this little bit of metal here going right to the edge. It's very important, right to the edge. Taking that right here. And now we're going to take this tab and we're going to attach it down. This is a very interesting build. So we're going to take this part here we go. And if we bent that correctly, which I'm hoping we did, when we get this 90, ooh, very close. I'm going to place that in there with my tweezers. This guy here is secured with a twist. Now we're going to slightly bend this way here, just like that. And there we go. We have part A done. Now we're going to do this for B and C too. And there is C, all nice and formed. Now we need to attach all of these together, but we're going to need part number 5 to help us with that. Pushing your metal as tightly as you can into each other, we're going to bend these tabs one by one. Okay, that looks pretty good, but I'm going to use some other parts here in a moment to kind of help me get the proper shape. Let's go grab our first couple of letters here, which is A. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to use that and bend it just like that. There's our first one installed. Now we need to grab B over here. grabbing part number 6 here. We're going to take this and we're basically just going to fold it almost completely in half. Not completely, but almost. These tabs can be a little bit tricky to get into place, especially when they're so close together. You almost gotta have to bend one a little bit more than the other, and that should help you get it in there. Okay, there we go. Our hook is nice and installed. Now we need to move on to part number 7, which is our roof here. Tilting this up just a little bit there, we're going to grab our next piece and do the same thing with it, bend it just a little bit up there, and this will allow us to place everything where it needs to go. Here's our one side finished. Do the same thing for the other side. Okay, there's our roof looking all snazzy. Now we can move on to the next section, which is attaching the detail piece B here on. Now we gotta form it first, which is pretty simple to do, making sure that our engraved side is of course facing the outside. We're gonna bend the one side down, match the roof to that little side bit of detail there, just like that, matching her up a little bit more. There we go. Excellent. And doing the same thing on the other side, just bringing that side in, matching it along with the other. Don't want any gaps at all in the metal. And now with our little window here all built, we're gonna go ahead and attach everything together. Let's see how this works. With our hook, we're gonna put that right here because I like to orientate everything to what I have on the instructions. And looking for the part of the roof that has this bit of detail on it, we can now attach this side right to the left of the hook. Now I'm going to make this a little easier on myself and bend these tabs out just a little bit. There we go. Awesome. Really cool looking. I like this a lot. Now we can add that little window on. Again, making sure that we orientate this to the right side. We're going to put one side in first, followed by the other. There we go. And our window looks pretty awesome if you ask me. Now we need to do the same thing with the other side, but first we need to form a little bit more detail, which is these two guys right here with part 12. And of course B right there, but we're going to form 12 first. I'm going to bring this little bit of detail over and just like that. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Now I grab the same thing here. Bring it back. Bring it back. We're going to bend this tab slightly to the left, and that's going to help us in a moment here put the other pieces together. Okay, now I know I was supposed to do this first, but we're going to do it now. I'm going to take this piece here and place it into our base. Looking great. And that, of course, brings us to the end of page 3. So we need more parts.
And just like that, we have all of our parts needed for page 4.
Let's start by grabbing part number 13 here and bending all of these sides. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Now we're going to use part 14 here and line that up with part number 13, and that will kind of give us an idea of how much more we need to push this in. There we go. That looks pretty good. Let's put it onto the family home here and see what we need to adjust. All of these tabs are secured with a twist. Okay, that looks really good. Now let's move on to part number 15 here and all of its add-on detail. And just like that, we've finished all of our pieces, and that looks really sharp. Now, we need more parts. And here are all of our parts needed for page 5 and 6. Let's get started with part I, which is our last window, I hope. Again, very simple. Just fold this little guy down here. Let's flip it over to the other side. There we go. And grabbing it right in the middle here, bringing it over. And you're going to have to adjust these here just slightly. You don't want any gaps, so you just got to push it down until it meets there. There we go. Other side. Now to make life a little bit easier on us too, we're going to take these tabs and we are going to bend them. There we go. Okay, and that is our last little bit of detail installed. Now we need to bend this part right at the fold line, getting as close as we possibly can, and we're going to bend that 90 degrees. Boom. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with the other side here, but we're not going to go as far. We're going to kind of leave it out like this. And the reason why is we're putting parts inside of here, and we're going to close it when we have both of them together. Now we need part 17, and part 17 is really important that we make sure that the non-engraved side here goes on top. There we go. Same thing with the other side. Great. And now 18 here, making sure that the engraved side, which I really can't tell is which one is the engraved side, to be honest with you. But we're going to look at the big side. The one bigger side is going to go on the right-hand side, and the smaller side is going to go on the other. So we're going to make sure the big side goes here on the right, and the small side goes on the left. That is looking really good. Okay, let's move on to part number 19 here. And we're going to do the same thing right away with this. We're going to bend everything right at that fold line. This little floor here gets bent right down onto this tab here. There we go. And that tab is secured with a nice bend. There we go, nice and flush. And now we need part 20 here, a little ladder. Making sure again that we bend right at the borders. That is looking really awesome. I like that little staircase we installed. All right, let's move on to our next step. We're making some boxes here. Now, before I go and bend these sides, I'm first going to add all the detail on. That'll make it easier for me to install the detail. So the first thing we're doing is bending a small little box. Okay, now that we got the right part, we can go ahead and start adding on that detail that we formed. I'm glad I caught that there. Let's grab our first small box here. Now, to make life a little bit easier on us, it tells us to go ahead and bend the tabs inward. This does make it a little bit easier for you to install the detail. Okay, that's our part complete. Now we need part 25 to start building our smokestack. This piece is just basically a giant rectangle, pretty easy to form. Now sometimes these tabs here can get in the way, so just bend them in like this, and that should help you get them out of the way of our other parts here. Good. That looks really nice. I really like the look of this chimney. Okay, let's move on to forming our roof, and hopefully when everything goes together, it'll be really nice and straight. Pretty easy. Now we gotta grab part 28 here, and 28 goes on the back. Now this part looks a little scratched up. I don't know how that happened. That's too bad. But we're gonna go ahead and install it on the back here, making sure that the engraved side is facing up, which is this side here with the lines on it. There's our roof, looking really nice and complete. Now we need to add on our chimney. Now the chimney is very important to make sure that long rectangle here goes on the right. Now we're going to bend these in just slightly like we did with our other stuff to make it easier so they fit. Okay, now we can add on our other piece here, making sure that our stairs are on the back end. That rooftop is looking really nice. Now we gotta add it on to our other piece that we formed earlier. This should be pretty easy. I'm gonna go ahead and bend these just ever so slightly outward, and that should make it a lot easier for me to get these tabs in. And there is our rooftop all attached. Looking really nice. Okay, now we need to move on to building more detail with part 30 here. Another window. I thought we were done with these. Now grabbing part 29, we start adding on our detail. And our first part is right dead center. I maybe shouldn't have bent that just yet, but regardless, we need more parts. And just like that, Groove Builders, we have all of our parts needed to build the Weasley's family home, the Burrow. Now, let's grab part 31 here and begin to bend all of our detail around this edge. There's part 31. Now let's move on to part 32. Okay, with part 33 nice and formed, we can now start putting all of our detail onto part 29. There's all of our detail attached. Now we can add our bigger half here on. Okay, that looks really good. I like this. Now, let's continue on with our build by building the rooftop here. And then we're going to form our little window here with part 36. Now this right here is our engraved side, and the back in here is our non-engraved side. Now, just like we did before, I'm going to slightly bend these tabs outward, and that's going to allow me to be able to easily attach this roof. But this roof, we're going to have to actually bend in half first, just like that, following that bend line. And then, just like before, there's our last little window, hopefully formed. And now we're going to put this onto our roof, making sure that we're putting it on the proper orientation on the side here with that little cup. That rooftop's looking pretty nice. Now we need part 38, and we're going to be attaching this on the lower half, making sure that the non-engraved side, that's this side right here, is going inside of the model here. Okay, and there's part 38 installed. That looks pretty good. I should have formed that a little bit better inside, and I think it would have had a tighter fit, especially with this part right here. Oh well, live and learn a little bit, I guess, there. Bang that piece like this, and a little bit like that. There we go. Okay, now we need to move on to our next step, which is forming our last window. This guy right here. This goes on the front part of our smaller house here. Ooh, my roof looks a little crooked in comparison to this. Let's add this little bit of detail on here. Cool. Now we can add our little roof on. I think I'll feel a little bit better about everything once I do this. There we go. That looks so cool, especially because everything's out of whack here. This rooftop I'm gonna have to do a little bit more playing with because I don't like the gaps that I have here, but that might be because of how some of this was formed in my earlier stages. I'm gonna try my best to form it out, but for right now we need to finish this build up, and that means attaching these two pieces together. And there we have it, Groove Builders. The Weasley's family home, the Burrow.
Hey, we did it, Groove Builders! We built the Weasley's family home, the Burrow from Metal Earth. And this build was actually pretty straightforward, but man, it looks awesome with all of its really interesting shaping and curves. If you're looking to build this at home, there's quite a lot you're going to want to know before you attempt it. Let's talk about those things in construction. My first point when it comes to building the Weasley's family home, the Burrow, is that there's a lot of really interesting shapings on this model, as you can see just by looking at it, which means it's very important to follow the instructions as closely as you can to make sure that everything fits together correctly. Now, I did mess up a few times on this model, especially on this little centerpiece, so my suggestion is to really again double check your instructions before moving on to the next step. It will definitely save you some headache in the later stages when you're putting your bigger pieces together. For my second point, I want to talk about this chimney here and the two windows on the left and the right. These can be a little bit tricky to install because of the roof that we already have in place. My suggestion is to slightly bend either side out just ever so slightly and place those parts in, and then bend them back. Or leave them. This home has a lot of character to it, and having a little bit of shaping like that on the edge might actually add to it. Now, of course, you don't want to do too much, but I definitely think that if you were to do that just a little bit, it will help you get those pieces in and also look really nice. For my third and final point, I want to talk about a strategy to make it really easy for you to put all of this add-on detail into place. Pre-bend your tabs, most of them 90 degrees. That really does make it easy for you to put them into place and secure them onto your build. If you don't do this, you might find yourself really struggling to get some of these pieces in, especially along the rooftops here and these windows down at the bottom. Groove Builders, take your time with this build. Once you're done, you're done. And with that being said, Groove Builders, let's move on to build time. The Burrow from Metal Earth took me just over 3 hours to build, with the majority of that time being spent, of course, bending all of these little bits of detail here that go onto the home. Now, Groove Builders, it's never a race to get these things done, and you definitely want to take your time with all of this small detail. Once it's bent, so if you make a mistake while rushing, it will show up. Groovers, take your time with your builds, and you'll be really happy with them in the end. And finally, Groove Builders, my thoughts. The Burrow from the Metal Earth Harry Potter collection. This home is really crazy. I mean, reading about it in the books, seeing it of course in the movies, but now holding it in my hand, if I was to ever live inside of this home, I think I would go nuts by its layout. But that being said, building it was quite a lot of fun, and I think that any new or experienced builder who's looking to maybe build some of the Harry Potter series would really enjoy this build. There's quite a lot here, but everything that is here is not too difficult to build, even the roof stuff, which was a little bit of a struggle. I mean, even that's really not that difficult, and I think that if you take your time, especially as a new builder, you'll really enjoy everything that this model has to offer. Overall, this is our third model in the Harry Potter series, and so far, my favorite, which was a big surprise because I didn't think that I was going to like this one when I originally started. Just something about how it all came together really made it a lot of fun. Alright, Groove Builders, that brings us to the end of our show. I had a really good time building this with you, and if you guys had a good time, don't forget to press that like button. For more videos like this, hit subscribe as well, as we got all kinds of really cool content coming out in the future. Thanks to Metal Earth for supplying this build. I really did have a good time building it, and I hope to build more of these in the future. Alright now, Groove Builders, looks like I have to walk down that trail. I hope the Burrow isn't too far away. Wish me luck.